Hello, welcome to another session of Houdini training. My name is Gianvito Serra, and today we are going to talk a bit about how to navigate the Houdini interface. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch Houdini. Oops. Okay. If you have an apprentice edition, you can, if you like, launch effects. At the end of the day, the Houdini launcher will take care of loading the proper licensing scheme, depending on what license do you actually have installed. Okay, so in this particular case, it is actually, even though I launched effects, it is actually setting me up with apprentice. Okay. So when you first launch Houdini, you're going to be greeted with this UI or something similar depending on what version you have. And at a first look, it doesn't look there is a lot of similarities with many of the 3D application UIs that you normally see, like such as Maya, Softimage, Mats, etc., etc. Most of these UIs have a 3D viewer like such, and just like in if you're familiar with Maya, just like in Maya, you can navigate in here by just holding the Alt key and using the left button to rotate around, the middle button to pan around, and the right button to actually zoom or dolly. What you see here is basically a grid, just like in an origin, just like you would in most of your applications. And if you look at the top here, you will see what looks like a shelf, similar to the kind of shelf that you will have in Maya. Not surprisingly, they work in a very similar way. A lot of the work that I do in Houdini, generally I don't use the shelf tools as much, but they are a great way to get started on learning how to use Houdini. Every time you press a shelf button, an action will run to actually get Houdini to set you up with some assets. Okay, so what we're going to start doing is that I am going to I'm going to start by creating a bot. So when I click on this, you will notice that the first thing that happens is that I get a little manipulator and a ghost image of a bot moving around. Okay. What this is that when you first click on an object inside on your shelf, it's going to actually give you the little context tool to create the object. If you look at the bottom, we also see some instructions about what you can do from here. So we can actually select the position from the bots, or if you want to elevate the bots up away from what is called the construction plane or the grid, you can hold shift and then see now the bots will travel up and down the construction plane. Okay. When you're happy with that position, you can use and see if I let go of shift, now it's actually moving up at this height. Okay. And when we're happy with that position, all that we have to do is left click, and there is our bot. Now, you notice that some certain things change in our UI the moment that we created the bots. For example, the moment that the bot was created, of course, yes, we got a bots here in the 3D view, which we can come in and manipulate and rotate or whatnot. But also, we got this little window, which used to be empty, is now populated with what looks like parameters and drop-down menus and sliders, etc., etc. This is basically the parameter window, and for anyone coming from Maya, It is equivalent of the actual attribute editor. For you, anybody coming from Softimage, is equivalent of the property window. Okay. And just as you can imagine, the parameters that you see here control the object that is in 3D. Okay, is the parameters that are associated with this particular object. Okay, see, as we rotate, we can see the numbers changing there. Okay. Okay. In addition to that, you will notice that we got what looks like a little box here with a name of an object and what looks like a little icon. This is the network view. It's one very important panel inside of Houdini, as Houdini does actually embrace this idea of using nodes underneath the hood to be able to drive creation and manipulation of objects. Okay, it is part of its procedural nature and its visual programming nature. Okay. All right, so let's look at a few more things here. I'm going to actually go ahead and reset my transformations of these bots so that they are back at the origin. But actually, what we're going to do instead is I'm going to show you how to create a bot so that it's at the origin. So you guys saw that if I click on the bots, I get a little manipulator that allows me to put a bots anywhere I want. Okay, so I can press escape if I want to get out of dropping a bot. Okay, you can also, if you hold control and then click on the bot, you will actually create one at the origin. Okay, and this is useful to be able to if in case you just want to create something at the origin. Alright, and once it's on the origin, you can of course manipulate it like you normally would. Okay. Okay, so you can obviously create many different types of objects. We can create a sphere, for example. We can create a torus, and so on and so forth. Okay, so using shelves is not something that is definitely new. So it's something that most of you will be familiar with. Few more things here. You will notice too that for every object that I created, I have the parameter window here. But I also have a few things here which allow me to modify the construction of the object as well. So for example, for the torus, we can change the internal radius to say something like 25. Or we can change this other radius, which to something like this. Okay, we can get like different types of toruses. For any of these parameters that are numerical like this, where you see a number, you can always hold middle mouse button to load what is called the value ladder. The value ladder allows you to make a slider of any parameter basically. And you can even go up and down to change the level of precision of how much you slide. So if we go a little lower, it will slide a little slower. If we go a little higher, when we go left and right, it will slide, it's a little too fast, it will slide a little faster. Okay? You can use the same technique, for example, on the buttons right here. So for example, we wanted to use a rotate here, and if we middle mouse hold and then move left and right, we can bring the value ladder here as well. Okay. We talked a little bit about how you can actually create some tools here, similar to how you do in other applications. Also similar to how you do in other application is that we have a few tools here which allows us to modify the data. In addition to be able to do things like snapping, for example, or moving, or getting to vertex mode, point mode, etc., etc. Just to show you this, if we click an object, we can actually click on this arrow here to just get the selection tool, which we can use to just select objects. We can drag select, or if we hold left click on top of this, we will get other options. So for example, we could do lasso picking. You will see the objects get highlighted as you go over. We could do also brush picking, which allows you to just paint on the canvas and select objects that way. Can also do what is called laser picking, which allows you to just, it's kind of like brush, but it's a little bit more precise as it just uses where the cursor goes over, okay? You can add to selection, you can also toggle selection and replace selection in very similar fashion, like for example, if I hold control, I can get laser things out of a selection, okay? You can do the same thing with the lasso picking, I can shift to add things to the selection, okay? Similar to how we do this on different applications, I can select an object and then pick on the translate tool or the move tool, okay? And we can move it like this. If we roll over the manipulator, you will notice that they give you also the hotkeys, like move is actually T for translate, rotate is R for rotate, and scale is E for scale E at the end, okay? All of the manipulators have different widgets that you can control, so this allows us to move on one axis. You can of course pick on the center and move freely, which locks it to the construction plane. And also even click one of these things to move it within the actual plane. Okay, so we can actually move within a 2D plane. Alright. The rotate tool allows you to do very similar things where we can rotate in different axes and also pick on the center to do free rotation. Alright. Lastly is the scale tool. The scale tool is probably the one that looks the most different from most applications, okay? And what we have here in the scale tool is that these arrows on the outside allow you to scale on the XYZ. You can even see the little letters that tells you that. If you roll over this, you will notice that I have XY and YZ, so this actually allows you to scale on one plane. And the little lines here allow you to scale on a single plane. Okay. This manipulator is what is called the handle. What it actually does is that depending on what kind of node you have selected, this handle will actually give you a different type of manipulation. Okay? In this particular case, you will notice that I get a move manipulator. But you will see in future lessons where using this handle will actually give you other manipulators to do different things. Okay? Cool. Few other hints that I would like to show while we're here. In the parameter window, at any point, you can right click on any parameter and say revert to defaults, which in the case of this, it will actually reset it out to 0, 0, 0. You can also switch to previous value in some cases. In this particular case, it's not allowed, but there is a few things that we can do there as well. Let me delete a few objects here. Okay, so just selecting, as you can imagine, going back to the select tool, just selecting objects and hitting delete will delete them. And at any point, you can hold Alt, of course, to actually get back into the navigate tool, but you can also press escape, and this will put you automatically in the navigation tool. Okay. Moving on, like I mentioned, the grid is actually your construction plane. It's set up in such a way as when you enter any kind of creation mode and the grid is there, it becomes your construction plane. So if I actually pick the curve, for example, to create a curve, you'll notice that the points of my curves are actually being placed on the actual construction plane. Most tools will allow you to do something such as hold shift to move the construction plane. Always look at the instructions here, okay? So hold shift, then we can move the construction plane. And there we go. Okay? And just like any other tool, we have the options here to go to something like a close curve, for example. Okay? If we wanted to, can also hide the construction plane, and you will notice that when we try to create an object, it won't snap anymore to the construction plane, but it will be actually just attached to the view plane. Okay, here's the difference. See that? Very cool. Now for every object, we can also, you're looking at the object level, but we can also switch to faces. And you select faces. And just like in any application, we can modify the faces, delete the faces. We can go, for example, to select points. And go to the move tool and move the points, just like in any other package, okay? What you'll notice that there is things that are actually happening in the network view when we do these things. And again, that is because of the architecture behind Houdini. Houdini will record every single one of your operations in some form of node network so that you can always access the data at any point. So if I wanted to, for example, get rid of this edit that I did, I can delete this node, and now I'm back to where I was. If I wanted to get those faces back, obviously you can undo to get there, but you can also delete the node that created that operation, and we're back to the way we were. Okay? Go back here to object mode. Now these buttons here, the ones on the left below the manipulators, are your snap buttons. You can use these to actually snap any manipulation that you want to either the grid or the surfaces or points, or even do multi-snap for like different elements. Okay, just to show that really quick, I can at any point grab my object, go to the move tool, and turn on grid snapping to move my object and snap it into different places of the grids. Even invisible points appear here to continue the grid snapping that we see here. Okay. We can even turn on primitive snapping, which allows me to then snap the object to an actual primitive on the surface of another mesh. Okay. It's also point snapping, which allows me to snap to different points on the meshes, which we see here. Okay. On the right here, we have a few visualization options that we can use. So for example, we can click on this, and this allows us to switch to bounding boxes. It allows us to switch to wireframes. It allows us also to switch to wireframe with a ghosting behind it, so that you can see things that are a little bit further behind. You can switch to a hidden line visible, which hides the back faces of objects, but we're still transparent, as you can see here through this. We can also do hidden line ghost, which does that, but it gives you a little bit of shading. Okay. From there we can go into flat shaded, so you can get a little bit of flat shading. See, not too different from other applications. You can do flat wire shaded, so you see the wireframe while you're actually shaded. You can also do smooth shaded, which makes everything render smoothly by default, and then smooth with wireframe as well. Okay. If you press W at any point, you can switch in between wireframe and the shaded mode. Okay. You also have a few other options here. For example, we can go to flat shaded here by just clicking on this, and this disables your lighting and everything goes flat shaded. I'll hide this so we can see it a little better. You can also switch to the basic lighting, but then there is even high quality lighting that we can use here. You won't see too much of a difference here, but high quality lighting allows you to turn on shadows and all of those, occlusion and all of those things. Okay. This allows you to display materials if you have any materials on the object, as well as you can come in here and control things that you want to actually see in the viewer. This area basically controls visibility of things. Alright. If we click on this, we can see the vertices or points in Houdini. You can also see the normals on the actual objects, as well as things such as point numbers, primitive normals, and primitive numbers. You can look even a little bit of information about UV separation, which is your vertices. and many other options which we'll cover in different tutorials. Okay, but I recommend exploring some of these options so that we can get familiarized a little bit with some of the things that you can do in Houdini. You will find yourself visiting different visualizations to actually service different purposes on the application. Okay. Okay. And to close, we are going to show you something that you probably have seen in also different applications, which is your different views. So we can go from single view to, for example, 4 views. Go also to 2 views stacked, as well as 3 views split left, right, or whatnot. I mean, there is definitely configurations that we can actually do here to change our actual view. The little yellow menus that you see here allow you from within the viewport to switch in between the view that you're here to save perspective to the top view, and then we'll show the grid so we can see a little bit better. We can switch to the right viewport so we can see things on the right. We can switch even to look at the UVs, which in this particular case we don't really have any UVs, so this area is a little bit empty. This is also where we can also use a camera if we wanted to actually be able to see through a camera. There is a neat trick in the way how we create cameras in Houdini where, yes, you can actually click on the camera button and get a camera object right here, and also use your camera that way. And as you see, we can click on this and go to camera 1 here, which is the one that we just created. Now we can actually see to the camera point of view. You will notice, however, that as I dolly out of the camera, then all of a sudden my camera actually is back out of my frame, and if I click on again on camera and I restore back to camera 1, now I'm back to the view that I was before. And then watch, if I hold Alt and then back up again, look, all of a sudden my camera is back out of my frame and it never really moved. Okay, this is also another different from people that come from Maya, that if you want your viewport to match your camera or the camera to follow your viewport, you want to turn on the lock camera and light view. Okay, now that makes it so that I can move my viewport around and that switches the camera. Okay, so if I turn this off and I back up again, now my camera is loose again, but you can see that the camera has gone in a much higher place than I had before. Okay, because of me being able to move it with the viewport thanks to this button. Alright, likewise, you can also, another nice little shortcut is to set your viewport whichever way you want, and then control click on the camera, and that will make your viewport into a camera. Okay, so in a way you can store the viewport location into a camera very easily. Very cool. And that should cover this for this particular video. We'll cover a few more details on like the way how to actually modify the panels in a further session. But thank you for watching and have a nice day.